Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us despite very short notice. My name is Jun Nagata of Toyota Motor Corporation. I would appreciate your cooperation. I would like to start the joint press conference by Daihatsu Motor Company Limited and Toyota Motor Corporation. Please come onto the stage, those of you who are expected to take the floor here. Let me introduce those two gentlemen on the stage. Masahiro Inoue, who is scheduled to be appointed Representative Director and President of Daihatsu Motor Company Limited effective the 1st of March. Koji Sato, Representative and President and CEO of Toyota Motor Corporation. From here on, they will please allow them to be seated. First, Mr. Sato will say a few words of greetings and explanation. I'm Koji Sato. Thank you for joining the joint press conference by Daihatsu and Toyota. First, we would like to apologize for any inconvenience or concern caused to our customers as a result of the procedural irregularities by Daihatsu Motor Company Limited. Yesterday, we resumed production and shipment of Toyota Probox and Mazda Familia vans at Daihatsu's Kyoto plant. We would like to express our sincere gratitude to our customers who have warmly encouraged us, as well as to our suppliers and dealers and all related authorities who have supported us as we prepared to resume operations. Last Friday, Daihatsu President Okudaira reported to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism on measures to prevent recurrence and promised to demonstrate through actions the company's determination to never allow irregularities to occur again. Embracing the vision of the Toyota Group that Toyota Motor Corporation Chairman Toyoda explained the other day, Daihatsu, together with Toyota, is committed to manufacturing vehicles with safety and security as a top priority and to ensuring measures to prevent recurrence based on the three pledges of culture reform, management reform, and monozukuri and kotozukuri reform. That is, reform of making cars, making things, and providing experiences. Daihatsu's starting point is to support the lives of its customers through compact cars such as mini vehicles, which could collectively be called Japan's people's car. Manufacturing high-quality, affordable vehicles, including the efforts in DNGA initiative, is one of Daihatsu's inherent strengths, and we aim to return to that starting point and restore Daihatsu's uniqueness with the determination to rebuild the company. Based on this thinking, we will once again define Daihatsu's business domain as a company centered on mini vehicles. As for its overseas businesses, we will consider in detail how to change Daihatsu's planning, development, and production to being outsourced from Toyota. Also, we will consider in what way Daihatsu can assume the role in the future as a mobility company that focuses on compact cars with last-mile mobility solutions in mind.
Based on this direction, Daihatsu will change its management structure to steadily implement measures to prevent recurrence and promote foundation building for the future. Effective March 1st, Chairman Matsubayashi and President Okudaira will resign from their posts. The post of chairman will be abolished, and the new president will be Masahiro Inoue, who is currently the chief officer of Toyota's Latin America and Caribbean region, while Masanori Kuwata of Toyota Motor Kyushu will be newly appointed as an executive vice president in addition to the current executive vice president Hoshika. Incoming president Inoue has for many years been working on structural reform of Toyota's Latin American business, including a renewed regional management system involving Brazil and Argentina. Despite the many difficult decisions he has had to make, he has, with his leadership, moved reforms forward by implementing thorough dialogue with frontline members. Based on such experience, he will promote the revitalization of Daihatsu as the leader of Gemba-oriented management. Executive Vice President to be, Kuwata, will promote reform of corporate culture and organization by leveraging his experience in human resources and Gemba-oriented management. Daihatsu Executive Vice President Hoshika will continue to be the Chief Officer of a Daihatsu Quality Management Group in charge of building a system for regulatory and certification-related operations that do not cause certification irregularities. Also, Keiko Yanagi of Toyota's Customer First Promotion Group, who has extensive experience in certification operations, will be newly appointed as a director. She will support the execution of reliable certification operations by leveraging her extensive knowledge of legal certifications. Going forward, Toyota and Daihatsu under the new organization led by Inoue will work together to make every effort for Daihatsu to be reborn as a company worthy of the support of its customers. We ask for your continued cooperation and support.
Now, Inoue will say a few words. Thank you for the introduction. I am Masahiro Inoue. I'm currently stationed in Brazil as Chief Executive Officer of Toyota Motor Corporation's Latin America and Caribbean region. I'm humbled to be appointed President of Daihatsu Motor Company Limited as of March the 1st. Together with Executive Vice Presidents Kuwata and Hoshika and Yanagi, who will be an external board member, I would like to tackle issues as one team with one voice. I have been hearing about the procedural irregularities constantly since the issue arose in April of last year, including the investigation by the independent third-party committee and the report of the results of the investigation that was released on December 20th. When I was appointed to become president of Daihatsu, the first things that came to my mind were customers who use Daihatsu vehicles or are waiting for delivery, all domestic and overseas dealers and sub-dealers responsible for sales and after-sales service, suppliers, and those related to logistics who are negatively affected by the production and shipment suspension, and national, municipal, and local governments. I would like to sincerely apologize from the bottom of my heart for the inconvenience that this has caused. Daihatsu has a history of more than 100 years. We are currently a large company with more than 40,000 consolidated company employees. In particular, it is my understanding that the growth of Daihatsu within the Toyota Group over the past 10 years has been achieved by demonstrating various strengths cultivated over the long term. On the other hand, the quality and quantity of work that each site is responsible for should have increased in the process of this growth. I understand that these procedural irregularities occurred because we have not been able to take in the opinions and problems of each site and have instead continued to work while leaving issues unresolved.
The measures to prevent recurrence mentioned by Toyota's President Sato must be implemented thoroughly with the help of Toyota, where Daihatsu alone is not able enough. In addition, I would like to work together with Daihatsu members to reform Daihatsu's organization and culture, which allowed the occurrence of the procedural irregularities, and do my utmost to revitalize the company. As for CJPT, in which we have been participating with Toyota, Hino, Isuzu, and Suzuki, considering the inconveniences our actions have caused and having at this moment placed the highest priority on preventing a recurrence of such an incident, we have offered our withdrawal, and it has been approved by related companies. Toyota is striving to transform itself into a mobility company by combining the strengths of the Toyota Group. Since its foundation, Daihatsu has supported people's lives with our version of people's car or national car or compact vehicles suited to Japan's land and roads. We would like to take this opportunity to return to our roots and make it our mission to enrich people's lives by closely responding to the needs of our customers and contribute to the happiness of all our stakeholders as a mobility company centered on compact vehicles. Since joining Toyota, I have spent around half of my 36 years at Toyota overseas, mainly in emerging countries. During this time, I have learned that to listen to others, you must first talk to them and gain their trust. Otherwise, they will not tell you how they truly feel. So, I would like to start by going to Gemba, the sites, myself, talking to our employees, gaining their trust, and hearing their true feelings. Through dialogue with employees and stakeholders, we would like to determine the future direction of Daihatsu and explain the new organizational policy in April. We, all Daihatsu members, will make a fresh start together as one. We would appreciate your continued support.
We would like to start the Q&A session. First of all, I would like to entertain questions from those present in the venue. If you have a question, please raise your hand so that the microphone can be brought to you. And please state your affiliation and name before asking a question. We would like to entertain questions from many people as possible. I would like to ask you to limit to two questions per person. The person seated at the farthest left as viewed from myself, the second one from the front row, the lady there. Hayakawa of NHK. Thank you for the opportunity. Two questions are addressed to Mr. Sato. What is the objective of selecting the new president? And earlier, you mentioned about Mr. Inoue that he is the sort of person who has led the reform by thorough conversation with the members on the site. So please share with us the reason why you chose Mr. Inoue. And the second question relates to the irregularities relating to the certification. You are going to have the new top executive. How do you regard the responsibility of Toyota Motor Corporation and how Toyota intends to get involved with the new management? Thank you for the question, Ms. Hayakawa. With respect to the selection of a new president, Mr. Inoue as new president, right now, there are things that Daihatsu must engage itself. That is to say, first and foremost, the recurrence prevents measures to thoroughly implement that, as it reported that to MLIT. And as Daihatsu implements those measures, it also must engage in culture reform, which is, after all, was at the root of the problem itself. The other day, when the report was presented to the MLIT, there are three pillars of the reform, that is to say, management reform, culture reform, and the reform of monozukuri and kotozukuri. And those are the things that will take time. When we consider that those people engage in day-to-day activities on site, we must ensure the environment that people can speak out whatever in their minds. And from the long-term perspective of achieving a reform of Daihatsu, strategy must be formulated. Inoue has overcome the language barrier, working in emerging countries in a very difficult business environment. He valued communication in engaging in reform. So in that sense, being engaged in dialogue on the workplaces, I'm sure he'll be able to lead the reform efforts in the Daihatsu together with all the employees working at Daihatsu. So that's a major reason for selecting Mr. Inoue. About your second question, that is to say, the Toyota's responsibility and Toyota's engagement or involvement with a new structure. The other day, Chairman Toyoda announced and explained Toyota Group vision. The aspiration determination of WEFT and also the partners which will form the horizontal WEFT must ensure that the management is done by the vision. And in order to share that vision, the communication on site is something that we will engage ourselves in at the actual work on site. So in the actual work, what is correct work and what is the correct work of manufacturing is something that we will continue to ask ourselves constantly. And that's one way of fulfilling Toyota's responsibility. And because the things that overseas project might have strained Daihatsu's workplaces, and on this area, considering the workload of Daihatsu and burden placed on Daihatsu, we will re-examine the roles to be played by Toyota and Daihatsu so that part of that work can be handled by Toyota. And this is some of the challenges that we need to address ourselves in by taking those initiatives to lessen the burden that has been placed on Daihatsu. So together with Daihatsu, we would like to create the correct culture and correct foundation. Thank you.
Next question, please. Yes, I see a person in the second row in this block. Gentleman. This is Yao from Nikkei. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As for the objective of the new management structure, earlier, Chairman Toyoda talked about sovereignty at Gemba. Now, within Daihatsu, you did not select a person, a homegrown person, but rather you're sending someone who has had his experience at Toyota as a president. Why is that? And number two, about the business scheme reorganization. Overseas development and production will be outsourced from Toyota, as you mentioned. Now, what is the difference from the conventional methodology, and what would be the aim of that? Thank you very much for your questions. Well, as for the objective of the new structure, Inoue-san comes from Toyota. Well, whether from being Toyota or Daihatsu, what is the most important would be to be at the Gemba, to exercise his leadership. So within the entire group of Toyota, we have gone through the selection process. Inoue-san is the president, and Toyota Kyushu's president, Kuwata-san, who will be the executive vice president. Since working in Kyushu, both of them are very well known for their very deep and thorough engagement with the Gemba, understanding what it is that people in Gemba are feeling. So, Inoue will be the best person to be able to support the feeling of Gemba. As Chairman Toyoda mentioned the other day, giving the sovereignty to the Gemba is something that we regard as the most important, including the right way of doing, the right processes. All of these have to be monitored precisely on Gemba, and that was the cornerstone of reforming the structure. And all of them, all of the Daihatsu members in different levels are so eager to rebuild the company for the better. So human resource development will also become a part of the important mission of rebuilding this company. For the future state of Daihatsu, the company has to be ready to have the next generation leaders, and also Hoshika-san, over the past 42 years, he has been with Daihatsu. And as I talk with him, Hoshika-san would often remind me of what it was like years ago at Daihatsu. Daihatsu was a company where people cared each other, and he remembers that very well. And it is very important to have someone like that to support future endeavors. Everyone can reflect on themselves to consider what it was that Daihatsu was all about, and thus building answers and responses to new questions and challenges. And those are the reasons why we have come up with this idea of the structure. As for the business scheme restructuring, in terms of the overseas business, Indonesia, Malaysia, there are partner companies out there, so the details will have to be discussed with the partner companies as well. It takes time to make decisions on the details of the operations, so please be patient. And also, when it comes to overseas businesses, there are currently OEM form of supplying vehicles, but then that should be centered around mini cars. Planning, development, production, certification, different processes involved in cars for the overseas market. There should be a clear demarcation between what Toyota does and what Daihatsu does. So for each of those different processes, we will try and define where we draw lines between the two companies. So we will continue the deep dialogue with the new management team. So probably in April, when we are ready to announce the total management structure, we will be able to provide you with more details. Thank you for your questions. Hirao-san, thank you very much for your questions. I would like to supplement one thing. Actually, I'm the one who has been sent from Toyota to Daihatsu, and I'm not in a position of talking about the reason why Toyota has done so. But as Daihatsu, I regard it as the mission to build one company to go through reforms of corporate culture, management, and koto-zukuri. As for the certification process, now we have the expert, Yanagi-san, who will be able to oversee the procedures. And Hoshika-san knows Daihatsu from the ground up. And Kuwata-san, who is the expert in building organizations. We make sure we communicate amongst ourselves as one team. So we aim at rebuilding Daihatsu as a worthy company, and that I regard as my mission. And effective 1st of March, I will start running at the top speed. Thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you very much. Next person. Person at the center row, the second one from the right. No, in the front row, sorry. Chunichi newspaper, Sugito is my name. In terms of communication between the two companies, that's what I'd like to ask a question on. For the reform of Daihatsu itself, both Toyota and Daihatsu will collaborate very closely, and that will be very important in my view. With President Sato and incoming President Inoue-san, as top executives, how do you intend to ensure great communication between the two? Could both of you comment on that, please, at this juncture? Thank you for your question. Actually, Inoue-san and myself since the new management structure came into being in Toyota, every week since Inoue-san is CEO of the region, I have had communication very closely, and we do have the relationship that allows us to have very frank communication. That's how I think our relationship is. Is that right? And we use also line to communicate with each other. This is not the reason for choosing Inoue-san, but he always moves forward, and he has the philosophy of taking action. That is to say that thinking is very close to myself. Take action first, and then face squarely the challenge in front of you and find solutions to that. Since Inoue-san has been engaged in emerging country businesses, when it comes to certification, she has extensive knowledge there. And with respect to procedural irregularities that occurred in Daihatsu, he does have a good understanding from the perspective of someone from external area. So although he's not an expert of this area, but I'm sure you could have noticed that he is from Kansai area, that is to say he is actually from Kyoto. So I think he's very close to the original scenery that has been in existence from Daihatsu. So at the very root, I think Daihatsu is part of Inoue-san's original scenery, and he can have a very close love for Daihatsu. So not the communication at emergency time, but how to have extensive communication at normal time is very important. So without changing the existing good relationship with Inoue-san and myself, we would like to leverage that as much as possible. Mr. Sugito, thank you for your question. Between President Sato of TMC and myself, the communication between this, during the time of President Akio, the region-based management and product-oriented management, those are the keys for the management, and those strategy had begun. And partly because of that, almost every week, the CEO of the region and top executives got together and talked about what's happening at the time, what's likely to happen in the future. That sort of dialogue constantly was conducted. So truly every week for 30 minutes at least, we had some conversation, communication with each other thus far, while respecting him. But at the same time, we are very open and frank. Whatever we wanted to say, we spoke out and we conveyed what was happening at the Gemba. And that was taken into consideration at the highest level, so escalation level. So even if I will be in the different position, I intend to value that sort of communication very much by having very close communication at normal times so that we can have even closer communication at emergency times. With respect to Daihatsu, as Sato-san introduced, I am from Kansai area, and my father had his own business running. And so constantly he was using minivans or mini trucks, and that was what happened in my childhood. That's my original experience. So that's the sort of environment in which I was nurtured using those sub-dealers. So I'm delighted to be able to work as a member of Daihatsu. One other question addressed to Mr. Inoue. So this personal appointment, that the appointment of you as president, when were you notified that, and what was your impression when you first heard about that? Yes. This new appointment, I heard about it 3 weeks ago, I think, 2.5 weeks ago. It just so happened that I was in Lima, Peru. I was on business trip there, and all of a sudden, the meeting notice was sent to me, and there, Chairman Akio and the President Sato, it was notified that the meeting request came from these two gentlemen, so I was surprised. So it was in the middle of the night, but I woke up and participated in that meeting, and that was how I first was notified about this new appointment. Because of the time lag, I thought, maybe this is a dream. But it was the fact and it was the truth. So when I heard about it, about this appointment, I was really humbled by the gravity of the responsibility that I was going to shoulder. But I did have a business relationship and association with members of Daihatsu. So on that point, I was also very happy to be able to work for the company, the Daihatsu, with a very strong competitiveness in the mini vehicles. The Daihatsu, and in emerging countries, Daihatsu has a very competitive capability with compact vehicles, and I was delighted to be able to work with those people in such a company. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next question, please. To the very left, from my perspective, the second one in a third row with red tie. Thank you. I am Inagaki from Asahi. I have two questions. The first question was to Sato-san. Now, the existing management of Daihatsu will resign. At the time of Hina scandal, the past management also took responsibilities. Now, this irregularity at Daihatsu had been ongoing for some time, and those people who have been loaned to Daihatsu from Toyota must be held responsible as well. So what do you think of the responsibility of the past management of the company? Well, thank you. The terms, responsibilities and resignations are the ones that we hear a lot about this. But as I said at the outset, the most important for Daihatsu is to rebuild itself with a new structure to prevent recurrences. In terms of procedures, at Daihatsu's BOD and extraordinary shareholders meetings, the new leadership has been approved. Therefore, Ue-san's resignation at Toyota has been approved by BOD of Toyota, and appointment as the president of Daihatsu has been approved by the BOD of Daihatsu, as well as the extraordinary shareholders meetings. So it's not something that we would call disciplinary, but rather the forward-looking changes of the structure is something that we are trying to put in place. Well, to supplement, the Daihatsu's management returned their bonuses voluntarily. So we are taking some comprehensive view of what has happened and what is going to happen. Going forward, we have to make sure what has happened in Gemba in quite details, and each and every one of the relevant cases will be explored. So this change in the management is not something that should be regarded as disciplinary. Thank you. I have the second question about management. So K cars or mini cars will be the center of the business, and overseas business will be outsourced from Toyota. So mini vehicles, dedicated company will Daihatsu become? Well, that's the assumption based on which Daihatsu determines its future courses. So we have to have assumptions to build future courses. So that's what it is. In Japan, they have also other compact cars other than mini vehicles. So the domestic business will continue as they have in the past, and we will see what the future holds going forward.
Thank you very much. At this juncture, I would like to entertain questions from those online participants, web-based participants. Now, those of you who are participating in this session online, we would like to entertain from you. So if you have a question, please press raise hand button on the screen. And if you're designated, please demute yourselves and also turn on the video camera as well. Now, from Best Car, Terasaki-san, please. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Terasaki of Best Car Journal. My question is addressed to both President Sato and the President Inoue, respectively. I have two questions together. Question number one. In the past, many Daihatsu past presidents have been from Toyota. Mr. Okudaira came from Toyota. And under his leadership, irregularities occurred. With Mr. Inoue becoming new president, the relationship with Toyota and Daihatsu, how do you expect it to change? How do you intend to change that relationship? I would like both of you to respond to that question. Thank you very much, Terasaki-san, for your question. The relationship between Toyota and Daihatsu, and I may be saying the same thing as my response to the previous question. At different layers, I think all the participants should be able to speak out whatever in their minds. In that sense, it'll take time to build good relationship, and many initiatives must be taken to deepen mutual understanding. The weekend, Chairman Toyoda invited altogether about 80 people, those leaders of workplace, Gemba, and surrounding around the vehicles. They focused on certification and also talked about TPS of Toyota. What is the concept and philosophy of Toyota, and from what perspective should be address themselves? And he initiated those activities where people can discuss together, facing with each other. And those meetings should be repeated many times. So I'll have very frank communication with Inoue-san and myself. The relationship that enables us to do that is something that we would like to build. And those people who are suffering may be able to speak out what are bothering them. So that's sort of very transparent and frank environment is something that we would like to build. And the fact that hoping that such an environment can be created at Daihatsu, we would like to cooperate with them. Thank you for your question, Mr. Terasaki. This time, well, I'm making temporary return to Japan, and I'm here in this meeting. But the other day, I had an opportunity to talk with Okudaira-san, former president. When Okudaira-san was working at Toyota, he was an engineer, and with respect to the business and sales and overseas, I did have actually business transaction or collaboration with Okudaira-san. And Okudaira-san said Daihatsu is an excellent company with good technology in those mini vehicles, competitiveness in that area. So the engineering capability, the competitiveness of mini vehicles. And from the perspective of myself, being placed in an emerging country, could truly feel what sort of vehicle is really needed in those emerging countries. I had the true sense of that. So in that sense, with respect to compact cars distributed outside of Japan, where irregularities occurred, by having good communication, dialogue with President Sato, we will make sure that management can be reformed, culture can be reformed, and monozukuri or kotozukuri can be reformed so that the irregularity can never happen again. And by combining the strength and good points of both Toyota and Daihatsu, we will aim at creating the combined outcome that will benefit all the persons concerned. Thank you for your question. That's all. Yes, my question. Thank you very much.
From Chubu Keizai Daily, Katsumata-san. As we switch the video, please start speaking when you see your own face on the screen. Thank you very much. I am Katsumata from Chubu Keizai Daily. Now, I have two questions. Number one, which is related to the previous question. Now, Daihatsu's cultural reform is something that I'm interested in. Sato-san also mentioned that Toyota will work with Daihatsu, but from the perspectives of Daihatsu, Toyota is a parent company. There may be certain things that Daihatsu people found it hard to speak up. So I wonder how Toyota recognizes that challenge and try and support Daihatsu. Katsumata-san, thank you for your question. Once again, I'm repeating myself, but Gemba-oriented management, I believe, is a key in cultural reform. Gemba management or Gemba-oriented management is something that is distant from the meeting rooms. We tend to work in meeting rooms where we do not understand what is going on Gemba. You have to be in Gemba to understand what is happening there. You have to see what is going on and learn from it. I regret I haven't been able to do so successfully. So we have to recognize that and start from there. We would like Daihatsu people to feel Toyota is a comrade. And once we gain trust, they then feel that they can get support from Toyota. Well, unless they believe in that, they would not speak out of their own feelings. It really takes time to build that trust, but that's something extremely important for rebuilding Daihatsu. Now, after this irregularity surfaced, we regarded it as a Toyota Group's company. So, representing Chairman Toyoda, Miyauchi-san, who is the chairman of Toyota East, was constantly at Gemba of Daihatsu, listening to people on Gemba. And what happened in Gemba is something that he has tried to understand and uncover through such dialogue. So Chairman Toyoda talking about sovereignty in Gemba is something that is demonstrated by Miyauchi-san's act. And that's exactly how we try to work together with Daihatsu. So Inoue-san must have trust in me that if he talks to me, I can always offer support and help. And it's very important that both Inoue-san and myself always visit Gemba to get the true feeling and garner support. Thank you. My second question goes to Inoue-san. The measures to prevent recurrences in your report to emulate, you mentioned various initiatives for the next 5 to 10 years because they really have to take root in the organization. Such initiatives should not wear and tear by time. And you have set the time for the restart. But what is your idea of not getting such initiatives to get old and worn out? Well, thank you. I've been Daihatsu on my business trips so far, so the Gemba of Daihatsu is something that I have to explore going forward. Now, over the past 10 years, there was a tremendous growth of the volume of production, and that means that there had to be appropriate resources. And also, when we increase the number of markets, that also means responses to challenges in different markets with higher quality. So rapid expansion of the company caused the distortion which was not absorbed within the organization and thus leading to such procedural irregularities in certification. So together with people at Gemba, we really have to have a thorough dialogue of understanding why that happened. And someone must have pulled the undone cord during the way. However, that was not detected, that was not picked up by someone responsible. So we have to make sure what happened and who has pulled the cord, who has not responded, who tried to respond. So we will go through all the necessary processes to uncover everything. Setting a date is one thing, but that is not just the formality that we want. We must explore the true cause of the irregularities, and that, I believe, is the way so that people will not forget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to entertain questions from the venue itself from here on. The person in the central block wearing a facial mask at the front. Sankei newspaper, Ikeda is my name. Listening to what you have just mentioned, you said that you're going to place top priority to recurrence prevention. I fully understand that, but I would like to ask the following. The competitiveness of Daihatsu, how can Daihatsu can maintain that while focusing on recurrence prevention? In order to give some slack to the development Genba, you said that you may be extending the development period a little bit so that a little leisure can be given to the development Genba and a certification can be adequately addressed. So in that process, wouldn't those activities or initiatives lead to reducing Daihatsu's competitiveness? In this reform efforts, you need to make efforts to maintain or enhance competitiveness as you focus on recurrence prevention, and unless you do that, you wouldn't be successful. So how do you intend to strike a good balance between competitiveness maintenance and focus on recurrence prevention? So I'd like both of you to answer this question. Thank you, Mr. Ikeda, for your question. As you correctly pointed out, for the company, the competitiveness is a very important factor for any company. But at the same time, the corporate management is like a marathon. It takes long. We need to take a long-term perspective. That's the overall assumption. Because we accelerate the speed too much, if I may just continue with the marathon analogy, probably we may have found our legs paralyzed, but instead of slowing the speed, we just try to reach the goal as quickly as possible. So at this juncture, even if we have to reduce the speed a little bit, we must make sure that we be able to do the correct work and make the right things unveiled. But while we slow down the pace, what we are going to do is very important. I think it's very important to re-examine our own strength. Daihatsu has two important strengths. One is in the monozukuri process to focus very much on minimum unit. That is to say, by focusing on the minimum system for production system, for purchasing system, it has been engaged in activities focusing very much on basic unit. So that strength, once again, need to be re-examined and reviewed by all the parties concerned. That's what Daihatsu need to do. So even if Daihatsu reduces its speed, this sort of initiatives to re-establish its foundation for the future is very important. The second strength of Daihatsu is to be always in tune with customers' lives, to be able to thoroughly understand what customers actually need, listening to the voices of dealers or sub-dealers, which number more than 30,000 throughout Japan. So those sub-dealers reflect customers' needs. And Daihatsu has the network that can gather opinions or voices of customers throughout Japan. And that needs to be re-established so that it can continue to function quite well. So if you just focus on development period, it might appear as if the company is just slowing down the pace. But at the same time, in the same process, the company will engage in restoring and re-establishing its strength once again. Thank you for your question, Mr. Ikeda. As you correctly pointed out, the challenge occurred this time in the process where some relaxed period should be given. And that might mean that the delivery cycle of products may slow down a little bit. So how that should be addressed is the core of your question, I believe. For quite an extensive period, I was at the front line of sales and marketing outside of Japan. For example, the products launched one after another quite quickly, in quick succession. That is not necessarily lead to the unit sales, which is fully linked with the competitiveness. I think it is very important that new products be introduced when those new products are needed, and that good cycle is very important. And the product switch cycle between commercial vehicles and passenger cars, for passenger cars, mini vehicles, customers will be using for their daily lives, but in the case of commercial vehicles, those are used for business activities. So when it is necessary to give some relaxed period for development by having the best mix of those delivery cycle between passenger cars and commercial vehicles, and by combining that product launch so that the right cycle can be put in motion is very important. So thank you for your question. My second question is as follows, and what you have explained thus far may be an answer to what I'm asking right now. As you're trying to rebuild Daihatsu, it seems that Mr. Sato talked about integrated operation of Daihatsu with Toyota TMC itself for restoring correct manufacturing, correct way of manufacturing, as well as achieving culture reform. By bringing Daihatsu closer to Toyota to integrate it with TMC must accelerate the reform itself. That, I think, is one possible understanding or concept. But you have decided to maintain the existing form as you also promote reform. So was the option of reintegrating Daihatsu not available when you consider that? And just came up with this scheme. I think you talked about the competitiveness, and establishing that might give an answer to my question, but I would like to hear the answer from President Sato once again. In rebuilding and restoring Daihatsu, we must have the determination, Daihatsu must have determination to rebuild or recreate the company once again. So the irregularity and the uncovering of that could lead to the fact that society will not really allow the company to exist in the future. That is to say, including integrating Daihatsu with TMC, we examined various possibilities and options. And as we have done that, as I mentioned earlier, Miyauchi really visited and also become a part of the workplace of Daihatsu, trying to take out true feelings in the Gemba, and also heard opinions from dealers, some dealers, encouragement coming from them. In the context of those communications, the Daihatsu as a company does enjoy a history over more than 100 years. And what Daihatsu maintained in that long history would be able to be leveraged so that what is needed and most essential for Daihatsu can be restored in that process. So on the basis of listening to the opinions and voices of those people supporting Daihatsu, we have reached the conclusion that we have shared with you today. Thank you very much.
In the furthest block, the fifth person from the left, someone who's wearing a white mask. I am Kume from Yomiuri. Thank you. Inoue-san, I have a question. Probox was relaunched, and Mirai production started again. Have those changed the perception of your customers? Now you started your production. There may be some who are waiting for the cars to be delivered. Now the stakeholders of Daihatsu, especially for the customers, do you have a message to deliver first of all? Kume-san, thank you very much for your question. Well, at this point in time, in terms of automotive production, it is vexing that we cannot deliver cars to waiting customers to the dealers who are waiting for them, and those customers who want their cars, the dealers cannot suggest the delivery date. And of course, there are many stakeholders who are unable to do anything, for example, carrying components to our plants. And at plants, we have workers who cannot work. We really wanted to restore the situation as soon as possible. But then, as we talked about today, we have to put in place the reforms in management organizational culture as well as monozukuri and kodozukuri. And that has to be the basis of whatever we can do in restarting as the company. And we have to gain understanding and trust from the public, general public, and our customers as well. So the very first thing I would like to do as the president is to have a direct communication with the employees and as well as the salespeople, as well as mechanics and engineers and just about everybody, so that we can bring this company back to the original form, to have a rebuilt and renewed company with all of us involved with a single-minded mission in our mind. Thank you. The second question also goes to Inoue-san. Why do you think you have been selected as the president of Daihatsu? As you look back at your own career at Toyota, how do you think you can leverage your experience in the past at Daihatsu? Thank you. Why have I been selected? The short answer is I don't know. But as I mentioned earlier at the video conference that I have been told, Chairman Akio talked to me directly. Well, I've been in Latin America for 5 years, and there are 40 countries, and I have been able to build a team of different stakeholders through dialogue and engagement. And Chairman Akio told me I was good at such engagement. And considering the challenge that Daihatsu faces, rather than the top-down approach, but the best combination of top-down and bottom-up approach, it's something that should be pursued. And that I thought was the best option for this company. And it so seems that I have such an experience, and maybe that's the reason why I have been selected. Well, I've lived half of my career overseas. I've been in production, I've been in sales. So I understand the feelings of people in different fronts and have meaningful conversation with any of them. So that's what I would like to emulate at Daihatsu. Having meaningful conversation with everyone involved. And I guess those are the factors that got me selected. Thank you very much.
The next person from this block, the person at the end of this row, the lady in white jacket, Nagai of TV Tokyo. My first question is addressed to Inoue-san. Last Friday, Daihatsu presented to MLIT the recurrence prevention measures. And what is your impression by going through that report? The environment Daihatsu was placed on was very difficult, and there was mentioned that. And many points were raised there. So what was your impression? How did you receive that report? That's the first question. Thank you very much for your question, Nagai-san. How did I receive or regard that report? As your question. Well, actually, the challenges that Daihatsu confronted with, that is to say, rapid growth in the past 10 years or so, and how it responded to the increased volume of both quality and quantity, but just leaving those challenges without being resolved, the businesses were simply continued, and that is what happened in my view. And those phenomena, what happened? Now, why did those challenges were caused? I think one of the reasons was organization, management organization, and also the culture. That's how I understood the situation that had been. In order to change that, just changing the form of structure wouldn't do the job. A simply superficial change will not be appropriate. We need to change the form, we need to change the culture, and by doing so, we can also extend or improve the strength both in monozukuri and kotozukuri, and also improve the weaknesses. So that's all we need to do. So when I learned what happened, that's how I felt about the situation and how we should address those problems. So in that, how can we work as one team with all the employees of Daihatsu is what needs to be done. So that's how I understood the content of the report presented to MLIT. So with that as a goal, I would like to move forward. Thank you very much. My second question is addressed to President Sato. Earlier, you talked about the announcement in April of a new business domain of Daihatsu, and that new business domain of Daihatsu will have a very important bearing on Toyota Group itself. For Toyota, you have alliance with Suzuki for small or compact vehicles. So as you re-examine Daihatsu's business domain, are you going to review the business activities or alliance of other companies and also Toyota's own business activities or business domains? Thank you for your question, Nagai-san. In terms of the overall business domain of TMC, when the group vision was announced the other day, it was mentioned there as well. As a partners creating future with aspirations, we are going to nurture and create the strength of one another, and leveraging that, we will aim at becoming a strong corporate group to aspire for serving the society. And when we consider that, Daihatsu to have the mini vehicles, which can be called as a people's car, as the core of its business, and in the future, including the personal mobility catering to the last 1 mile needs, is something that Daihatsu should grow into a company that can consider serving that society in that manner. But I may be repeating myself, but as I mentioned at the outset, what Daihatsu needs to do right now is to thoroughly implement recurrence prevention. So that's where its priority should be. So without getting overzealous, to following each necessary step in implementing recurrence prevention, and together with the new management, with new president and Inoue-san, I talked about April. By then, we need to have enough time to discuss with the Daihatsu, and that's a sort of a time frame I wanted to maintain. When that announcement is made, will be by Inoue-san, and therefore I'm sure, since both of us are aiming at transparent organization, so he'll let us know. So I'd like to look forward to that opportunity of making new business domain in sometime in April to be announced. Thank you very much.
Due to time constraints, we would like to conclude the press conference after 2 more questions. And obviously, I see more hands, but in this block, in the second row, the lady. I am Kato from Mainichi Daily. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Now, you announced the new structure of Daihatsu. The president and chairman will resign. May I understand that is because they are assuming their responsibilities? Now, what will be the responsibility of the new management? The independent third-party committee indicated the short-term development process was a problem, and promoting such short-term development is something that should be revisited. So Sato-san, what is your take on those? Thank you very much for your questions. Well, earlier I mentioned this, but prevention of the recurrence is thoroughly implemented while building Daihatsu Way, and that is the reason why we are having this new management put in place. So they're not resigning, taking responsibilities. I have talked with President Okudaira to discuss what sort of path we should tread on for rebuilding this company. And Okudaira-san voluntarily resigned. And also, the Executive Vice President Hoshika will remain in his position, but he also mentioned that he would like to resign as well. And of course, from the perspectives of the responsibility of the management, they really do feel responsible. And however, Hoshika-san was told by Chairman Toyoda that he was the one to implement sovereignty in Gemba, because he knows the challenges of Daihatsu from his long-standing perspective of being inside Daihatsu. And therefore, as has been reported today, we have landed on this idea. So we never talk about someone resigning out of taking responsibility. Kato-san, did he answer your question? Thank you very much.
The next one will be the very last question. The person on this row, the farthest one, wearing glasses, the fifth row from here. Kyoto Wire Service, Uchibori is my name. I have two questions. Thank you for this opportunity. The first question is the same as the previous question. Daihatsu produces the sort of vehicles that Toyota cannot, mainly selling in Asia. But for Daihatsu to downsize, that could lead to reduced competitiveness of Toyota in Asian markets. How are you going to make up for that? Could you explain that once again? The second question is as follows. Not just Daihatsu, but in the case of Toyota, there has been various irregularities in different companies within Toyota Group. And I think to a certain extent, Toyota itself must change itself. And as that is needed, what sort of corporate culture, Sato-san, are you going to establish within Toyota and Toyota Group? Thank you for your question. The Toyota's competitiveness of compact vehicles in Asia was a question. As you pointed out, Daihatsu has been able to manufacture cars that Toyota itself cannot make. In the case of compact cars, the larger one cannot be the substitute for smaller ones. Those smaller cars require special manufacturing capabilities, and because of that special capability, Daihatsu maintained competitiveness in these mini vehicles. And we should keep that respect for Daihatsu for having such strength. So regardless of the structural form of Daihatsu, we need to nurture and strengthen those Daihatsu strengths. So Daihatsu will remain a member of the Toyota Group. So we would have to re-examine how that collaboration can be achieved. For different companies, the way in which the planning is done, development, sales, and for after-sales services for different functions, each will have different strengths. So with close consultation with Inoue-san, we would like to thoroughly and very carefully discuss Toyota Group's strategy for Asia. Secondly, the areas that Toyota itself must change given the irregularities happening in different companies. And I think this has been fully answered by Chairman Toyoda when he announced the vision. The returning sovereignty to the workplaces so that people can speak out and make sure that the environment is conducive to that. We now have the banner that people can work toward that goal. So under that banner, with those of us leading the activities, collaborating with each other, how to put that into concrete action, it needs to be considered one by one and to take action as it happens. And those irregularities occurred not due to very simple causes. many different factors were intricately intertwined that resulted in those irregularities. So it's not as simple as if you do this and then all those irregularities will be gone. We'll have very attentive discussion with top executives of different companies within the group, trying to explore and search for the right direction that we can move forward. So in that sense, we intend to continue working to that end. Thank you for your question.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Well, lastly, I'd like to express my thoughts, taking this opportunity. Now, automotive production in the world, starting from components to finished cars, there aren't too many countries which are able to do that altogether. Now, automotive industry certainly has a comprehensive nature as an industry, and building cars is something that requires understanding and trust from the general public as well as from the government. Otherwise, we won't be able to continue to grow as a company. As has been mentioned, Toyota as a group has 17 companies. Each may have its own strengths and weaknesses. Toyota and Daihatsu tend to be complementary when it comes to the strengths and weaknesses. Therefore, the group's comprehensive prowess of monozukuri and employment will be the key in obtaining understanding of the general public of any countries, either in developed countries or in emerging countries. And that would allow us to continue to grow. And that, I believe, is the only way we can continue to grow and survive. So that's what we aim at as we work together with Toyota, having deep dialogue with Sato-san and other Toyota members. And I'm determined to move forward. Thank you very much. Thank you. With this, we would like to conclude the conference. Thank you very much for your participation. Now the speakers will retire. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today for the joint press conference by Daihatsu Motor Company and Toyota Motor Corporation. Thank you.